back. It's Swing Pass. We've got a special episode for you today. I am Adam Ruffner, joined as always by Daniel Cohen. And today we are joined by the former Eurostars founder, player, and coach, and also the current head coach of the expansion team, Houston Havoc, Bexs Forth. Bexs, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. You have already a bunch of experience in kind of the AUDL atmosphere, having played on 3 separate Eurostars tour before the pandemic. It's great to have you back in the league as a coach. Can you kind of talk to us about your experience going into this first year with the expansion Havoc? What sort of the team has been like at practices the first few weeks? What sort of styles you're noticing about this team? I mean, you have a couple of AUDL veterans and Ben Lewis and Matt Bennett around, but by and large, it's a lot of first-year players, a lot of rookies. What has it been like for you guys?
Well, a whirlwind is the first word that I'd use. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't anticipating I'd be stepping into this role. I knew that there was a franchise in the works, but really it was for next year. And really it was at Christmas time where everything suddenly snowballed in a very quick manner. And even when I was asked to consider the role, I had to take a good week to think if I had the time to be able to do it in the way that I like. And so since we've started and we had to think of a name and had to think of colors and logos and all sorts of things, we didn't really know how many people we were going to have a tryout. We had over 100, which was incredible. So that the week before the tryout closed, we were scaling up what our tryout was, which we were thinking, oh, maybe it was 40, maybe it was 50, maybe it was 60, and it's going up and like scaling. So that's kind of how it started. Everything was launched in a very speedy whirlwind manner. So by the time we got to actual team practices, it was actually quite nice because it was much more relaxed. And we've really been in this building phase. There's so much enthusiasm from the players, as you mentioned. You know, we have some players who've played in the AUDL before, but there's a lot of players who haven't had the opportunity to play on this scale, essentially. And they're so excited, and the community's so excited. So the practices have been very productive, is the word that I would say. We get an awful lot done every single practice, and we're raising the bar. I think the players didn't know, because I haven't coached in Houston before, so they didn't really know what I was going to bring. And I don't bring what would be probably what they expected. So I told them right at the beginning that, you know, I'm not a cookie cutter coach. I don't say, okay, this is the thing we're going to do. I'm just going to practice it and drill it and let's go. Definitely not that. I mean, that's not very interesting anyway. And when I decided to take on the role, and I was thinking, do I have the time? You know, I've got 3 kids. My husband travels a lot. And the word that came to my mind was, it's a chance to innovate. And that was the thing that interested me. You know, it is the first year. We have a lot of work to get through, to get to a point of playing to the standard that we all want to play at. But it's also an opportunity. And that opportunity was the thing that really excited me. And then as soon as I started thinking that way around and my brain starts going, I'm like, okay, well, decision's made. So let's just get these guys going. So each practice has been, I think the first practice, they were probably thinking, why is she making us do these things? I've never done this drill before. What does it mean? And then slowly the pieces are starting to come together. And the most beautiful times in our practices, particularly in the last couple of weeks, you've had the players as a team, as a collective, have had these eureka moments. They're like, oh, it makes sense. And that's kind of what I do it for. And it's been really encouraging to see that we're having these moments and that the players they're sinking their teeth into the direction that we're moving in, because they're starting to see how it can work. So that's really exciting.
That's awesome. I would love to hear more specifics, but I understand if you want to like dance around and keep the secrets
Right.
to
I mean,
the organization.
Well, for sure.
Can we ask a little bit, like...
Yeah, go on.
I want to know, like, what have been some of the points of emphasis? You know, is this a team that's kind of structured around its offense? Are you guys deriving your identity from some defensive aggressiveness? Like, what have been kind of the things that have been those eureka moments? You don't have to give away everything.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to make you show your whole hand, but
you know, tease it out a little bit.
This is Texas Hold'em in the South, after all. So I appreciate if you don't want to show.
And we have some players. We have some players who are super exciting, for sure. And then we have some players who haven't played at national level. And we've got to work out how to unite everybody in a way that makes a team that is clicking together and is functioning, and that you can't, I always say that ultimate is the strength of an ultimate team is the strength of your weakest link, not your strongest link. You know, in soccer, you can have a Maradona that comes out or Ronaldo that comes out and can really pull a whole team together. Occasionally you can have a player a bit like that in ultimate, but it's your weakest link that's where you get abused. So I always try to look at how the team functions as a whole organism. But oftentimes, and I think that sometimes coaches that are trying to do that, they make it uber disciplined and very rigid. And I don't think that works either. And also it's very boring to play. And you don't get buy-in from players, because essentially I'm a player, you know, as an essential aspect of it. Happy, excited players play harder. So if you're bored, you know, you'll go through the motions. It's really just it's not the fun bit. And the more fun you have, then the more effort you put in, and that's at practice, but it's also in the game as well, and it all sort of spirals. So using the psychology of the team to keep it exciting for the players, stimulate the brain, stimulate the direction they want to run in, rather than being, you know, a coach with a stick saying run from A to B, do it this way, etc., etc. So the way that we unite the team in that way, and this is what I've done with every single team that I've had, is really concentrating on very strong non-verbal communications. And so the first few practices are really primarily that. And that's something I don't know that other people have done. It's something that I've done with every team. And we bring together this common non-verbal language for the team that allows us to play in a way that unites us. And it's something I did with Eurostars. And
I was going to ask, is that from your Eurostars experience, you know, uniting so many different countries of talents and not having a shared language, having to develop something like that on the fly? And I mean, in 2019, y'all had so much success running up against some of the top women's elite club teams. Was it due to that nonverbal communication style?
It absolutely was. It absolutely was. And it's something that, as you teach it, you can't define it. So you can't say, oh, that player is going to do this. And so you say, oh, defender, go and stop them from doing this. It doesn't work that way. So, and it means that you pick up this information from each other very quickly. So that's how I unite a team. So, you know, at Eurostars, there'll be players who, at least half the team I would never have met before in person. And bringing them together in 2 practices to then beat some of the best in the world.
Right.
You know, it was, I don't think that aspect gets focused on that much, because I think they just assume all the players are amazing, which of course the players are amazing, but it's so easy to have amazing players play badly with each other. And so that little element The other thing that's funny is that once you start to do this, it becomes second nature, and then the players think of themselves as better, and they are better because they're doing it naturally. So you're sort of improving them as a player, improving them as a team, and then everyone forgets the drills that you did at the beginning of the season. Or what happened that got you there, and that's fine. But it's those little building blocks that sort of build the knit between players and the team. But yeah, it certainly did it for Eurostars. But I've been doing it. So my coaching progression, I always do different things to solve the problems at whatever team you've got. You solve the problems. I played Paganello for 14 years and we won it 11 times, and the team was different every single year. And after I think about the first 5 years or so, which was bliss, then I played with a team called Super Hot Pot, and that was kind of like a precursor to Eurostars because I was picking out players. Well, it was actually, I got lumped into it. I'd say, okay, I'm not going to captain anymore. And then the next year they said, Bexs, if you get half the players, I'll get half. I'm like, all right, then how many have you got? No one. Okay, guess I'm getting the players again. And one of the ways that I like to do it to keep it interesting for me was to get players who didn't have the opportunity to play on teams that were a higher standard, but you could tell that they were very good, and you could tell that they put so much into their local environments and local communities. So that Super Hot Pot team was kind of the precursor to Eurostars, and I was able to get those teams to function very quickly. Sand and beach is really good training for this sort of thing because you're really tired, so you don't have very many options.
Yeah.
And also speed of turns is really important because of the sand nature, the movement on sand. So yeah, and then going further back, I've coached and captained mixed teams as well. So you're always working out solutions. The mixed team that I played on for many years in England, the women were much stronger than the men. So we were always working on strategy that used our women. And then going back further there was a year that I took a team to World Clubs, and we had some players. I know one player couldn't even throw a flick. And she couldn't get on other teams, but she was amazing at chase, and she was a great deep cut. But she couldn't throw a flick, so you work around it. And then going back even further back, like 25 years or so, GB women, we didn't have a women's division anywhere. So GB women, to prepare for World Championships, we used to play in the men's tour. And so you learn a lot strategically about playing a women's team in a men's tournament. And so you learn where the strengths, and it's not always the tallest or the fastest. So all of those little bits have added to my knowledge that I can then apply to this team, which hopefully is going to craft our style.
Wow, that's all. Like, it's amazing to hear kind of the trajectory of like yourself as a coach and player, and like how you're going to apply all these things to Houston. I'm curious, like, are there any differences in your approach to coaching this year because it's AUDL? Like, is there anything about the AUDL rule set that you're thinking about and like unique ways of strategizing and innovating in that sense to give your team an edge?
That's a good question. It's wider. That's the main thing. It's wider. So we're looking at that. And then the strategic changes because of timing. You have a limit on time. So those things, we haven't actually delved into our specifics there yet. We will. That's what this next month is for. We've spent, up until now, we've spent really getting the team into this common language, and then our playbook. We completed that last weekend, and now we're in the polish phase, and we're going more into game patterning. So those sorts of strategic changes will be happening and thought of in this next month. But yeah, we'll be looking at those in terms of timings and when we want to show different things at different times.
I'm curious, like with your playbook and stuff, are you coming into this team like with your own ideas of like a general system you want to run offensively or defensively? Obviously, like in addition to the nonverbal stuff, but like, you know, more X's and O's like strategy, or was that something that you're kind of building as you've gotten used to the personnel that you have at your disposal?
We've just finished building it. Yeah. So I tend to do a bespoke, tailored structures depending on who you've got, and it develops quite naturally and through and very quickly. Yeah, we finished it last weekend.
Awesome. It's exciting.
Have you been doing a lot of film study? Are there any coaches around the league that you've sort of been crafting little bits and pieces from, or can we not divulge that?
No, I haven't done that. So I haven't had time for that. No, I haven't done any of that at the moment. That'll usually be for counter plays. So the film study will be for our defensive side. So we have been working on our defensive side, but we've been more on what we're trying to achieve rather than tailoring it to our opponents. So the film study will come later. But no, the offensive side of things, that's just come. It's just come.
You know, you were talking a moment ago. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
You were talking a moment ago, Bexs, about how transition was so important to you, kind of from the different playing fields on sand and stuff that you came from. Do you see a similarity in that in the AUDL? I know in the film that I watch, I just see teams that can take advantage in their counterattack and transition, just having so much success. That's what New York was so good at last year. That's what DC is so good at. Do you see this Houston team having similar sorts of success in transition, despite maybe some of the lacking in experience or some of the professional stage experience that you guys have on the roster?
So I hope so. I hope that's the case. I mean, that's what we'd like to think. I mean, experience is an interesting one because people always talk about experience, and it's the same thing as when people talk about chemistry, as if it takes this incredible amount of time to be able to get to it. I don't really believe in either of those things. I think experience helps most in calming nerves. So the more you've been in that environment, the less excitable you might be. I certainly felt that, you know, through being in 14 Paganello finals, the first 5 or so, you're quite nervous because it's a huge crowd. But, you know, after a few, like, you know, I literally don't even notice them. And that can be bad too, because you don't have the adrenaline and the spark. So our opening game is going to be fascinating because experience in terms of, you know, how we play and how we react to play, I'm not worried about it in that respect. But the jazzed up feeling of playing in front of your friends and family for the first time on this stage, that's where experience is going to show, I think. And it could show in a very positive way that the players are just so jazzed up that they explode. Or some can hide. And these are the things that we actually don't know. We don't know which players are going to shine under the spotlight and which ones are going to be more subdued. And so there's a big question mark, and obviously people are interested to see what kind of team we are, and a lot of it's going to be down to that. So we will be working on aspects to try and reduce that. I mean, we actually, I don't know if you've seen our stadium, but it's an incredible stadium. And we've been fortunate enough, we do get to practice on the stadium field sometimes, which is a real bonus. So hopefully that's going to reduce some of any nerves or anything of that nature without reducing excitement. gonna have both.
So nerves aside, are there any specific players that are like notably impressing you more than others, guys that are standing out this early in the preseason that you want to hype up?
So that's a tricky question. So we've been really focusing on the team aspect.
Sure.
So I don't really want to name individuals, although I understand why you want me to. But it really is about having the whole organism. So we really want, and it's been, even in our practices, we haven't had people being put in specific positions. You know, clearly there are some people who have some throws which have a greater range, and others who are super sparky, and there's lots of different attributes to the different players. And I promise you that post game I'll talk about all of those things. But at this stage, what we're trying to do is trying to get everyone to be fully aware of all the positions and understand. It's all about the understanding of what needs to happen and function in each place, so that, you know, if you're a deep cutter, you understand the restrictions that a handler has. If you're a handler, you know that those deep cutters, you know, they've already done 3 cuts, they're tired. It's a wide field, it's a big field. So you've got to make your decisions based on the understanding. So we're really working on the understanding. That
That's
doesn't
cool.
answer
So
your question.
that's fine. That was a good way to avoid it. So you're really just like rotating guys freely, like across all the positions. Is that both offensively and defensively? Like, do you have set O lines and D lines right now? Or not
Oh,
yet?
that's the question. Pass. So the players ask me this all the time. At this stage, it's not defined.
Cool.
Excited to
Wow.
see that. Especially, you know, it was a month from yesterday that the opening poll will go up. Havoc are playing an opening night against your already kind of interstate rivals from Austin, the Soul. What is the focus going into that game specifically? I know you've kind of backed off about addressing like an individual matchup. You're still very much in this building the whole organism stage. But is there starting to be any kind of idea about what you all specifically want to bring to that opening night? Is it just managing nerves? Is it coming out and putting on a good show? Kind of what is the first impression the Havoc are looking to make in the AUDL?
Yeah, we really want to come out showing our style of ultimate. So we want to be able to execute what we're trying to do. Execute our mechanism of offense and disrupt.
It's gonna be hard against Austin. They've got a lot of pieces to disrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. So we fully are aware of our position. You know, I don't know that any first team has come out slaying. You know.
Recent history is pretty good for expansion teams, especially in the West. I think all 3 last year won their first game. So, you know, recent history is a little on your side. I'm just saying there's some upset potential.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really pay attention to those sorts of things, honestly. All I'm looking for in terms of the team is I'm looking for them to be able to execute the things that we want them to do. If they can do that, anything's possible. We had a saying in Eurostars: if you take care of the certain things that I'm not going to tell you about, but if you take care of those things, then magic happens. And you don't go for the magic; it just evolves, it just appears because you can't help it. You know, it's the same thing in practice. What we do is we don't practice the easy stuff. I'm not interested in practicing the easy stuff. You know, first of all, it's boring. Second of all, they can do it. So we don't need to practice it. So we practice the hard stuff, which makes the easy stuff easier. And it also is expanding all the players' breadth of playing. So I talked a lot in the tryout about how I was looking for players with craft, and the craft of your game. So it's not what throws have you got, what can you do here. It's what is your craft? How are you able to use what the skills that you have, and what mechanisms do you use to hide your weaknesses and to show your strengths? And how do you incorporate it with others? So that was something I was looking for in tryouts, and it's something we're trying to develop. And, the results will be the results. We may win, we may lose, whatever happens, it's okay. As long as the players are increasing their craft, the team is increasing their craft, and we're inching in a direction that is very positive. I think that's the main overlook. The main summary of what our approach is. And if you do those things, really the other bits come into place. So, yeah, I don't feel like I'm defined by the results. I feel like I'm defined about whether I get my players prepared to do different things than that they've done before, and can they execute those to a decent standard.
I can't wait to see these things you keep talking about. I love the coach speak.
It's Matt Bennett scoobers. That's all I'm hearing. It's a system.
Yeah, that's the system.
Matt Bennett, 40-yard no-look crossfield scoobers, exploiting the width of the field. That's where my mind's going.
We figured it out. You can stop beating around the bush. Yeah.
I'm not going to say no to it. I mean, they're starting to understand, So it's not like I'm just like free for all. This is not like a situation where it's like, oh, just go for your lives, because that's just chaos. That doesn't work. So they're understanding which things are strict and which things are loose, and you have to be able to understand that so that you reduce the noise. You've got to be able to reduce the noise for the decision makers. So a lot of the things we're trying to do is reducing the noise. And like I said before, a lot of people do that by being very disciplined about what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and go from A to B, and then you make your decision. We are doing that a little differently. You may not be able to notice what we're doing. You may go, oh yeah, they're running that play. Okay. So it might not be something tangible. You can go, I've worked it out. That's what they're doing.
I mean, yeah, we'll just see the on-field success should speak for itself, right? Like if things are working, we'll notice. Yeah,
we'll see. Or you'll see me shouting at them, going, "You're not doing it."
Right, or that, yeah.
Throwing clipboards, totally.
Yeah, just don't put like a coach cam.
Will do. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Bexs. We really appreciate it, and I think this just makes us even all the more excited for opening night when you guys take on the Austin Soul. It's just, I think, going to be one of the most exciting seasons and most anticipated seasons, and I think that's a lot to do with what y'all are building in Houston. So we very much appreciate having you on board.
Oh, thank you very much, guys. I mean, it's been an exciting journey so far, so I just hope we just keep the excitement going.
We're excited. My excitement is at an all-time high for Houston, honestly, because it's hard to talk about Houston in the offseason. We have no insight into the team, right. So I'm really glad we sat down to do this.
Yeah. You should come on over, come and see us.
Yeah, one day.
And you talk about whirlwind and you don't make reference to the tornado in the logo. I mean, come on.
Oh, I thought that was intentional. I thought that was like a subtle Havoc reference.
Just a little wink.
I'm glad you got it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Bexs. We'll be talking to you soon. See everyone later. This has been Swing Pass.